This goes back, well over 20 years ago when Charlie and I first met. And at the time, I was in that product role. I was overseeing a lot of things. We were very, very focused on evolving food and beverage within Four Seasons. For years, our restaurants were primarily thought of as a place for our hotel guests to go to, and that was our really very much an exclusive focus. It was rare that our restaurants, if you go back in time at Four Seasons, were as focused as they are today on the local customer, which we believe is really critical to the success of a restaurant. So I had the good fortune at the beginning of that journey, as we were focusing on how do we evolve and become more like independent restaurateurs, to go out, interview some of the best. At the time, very focused on successful restaurateurs in North America. And I won't name all names. The good news is I had a chance to talk to a dozen or more, what most people would consider 20 years ago to be sort of best-in-class restaurateurs, people who with iconic names. And I learned something from every single one of them, some really great people along the way in that journey. But a few, in addition to Charlie, would have been Tom Colicchio at the time, would have been Daniel Ballou at the time, would have been quite a few others. One of the other ones, someone local here that we met early on in that journey, was Michael Mina, another kind of protege and someone who knows Charlie very well here in the Bay Area. But when I met Charlie, and I met him for the first time when he was still running Ariel in New York, his flagship, really his first restaurant where it was his name, and it was truly his first restaurant. There was something about the experience of going to Ariel at that time for the first time, and then just watching how Charlie worked, how he interacted with his team, and seeing the success he had. All of these restaurateurs, great celebrity chefs, were willing to kind of open up. It was amazing for me how transparent they were in sharing their successes along the way, and some of the things that they learned to get to that level of success. And there was just a great chemistry with Charlie. Charlie also, at the time, had, at this point in time where we were looking at changing out one of the restaurants in the hotel, Charlie had established the new restaurant in Las Vegas. And so he already had a presence there. And one of my colleagues, a gentleman named Randy Morton, who was running the hotel in Las Vegas, had met Charlie too. So it was a sort of joint idea that we approached Charlie. I thought, great idea too. And so we approached Charlie, and one thing led to another, and Charlie ran that restaurant successfully for another 20 years after that. So that's how we came together at the time, we stayed close throughout that. As time went on, I was spending more and more time out here in wine country, so I'd bump into Charlie more often. But it really wasn't until about 7 or 8 years ago when we moved back to wine country full time that Charlie and I really the relationship blossomed to what it is today.
What has it looked like to become a student of the destination as you personally moved back here? And then I'm interested professionally in becoming more embedded into the community. But when you moved back here, how did you start to put in roots into the area here?
Well, to be honest with you, I had been coming in particular to Sonoma County for probably 30 years. I remember coming here, actually when I was fresh out of school for the first time, came with my brother and my mother, again, that influence early in my life, and I wanted to take them out here to some of the best new wineries and restaurants at the time, and that's well over 30 odd years ago. And throughout that, I always wanted to come back. I found myself always yearning to come back to this destination. Whether it was the food and sort of the creativity of the food, the innovation going on around food out here, studying some of the great, I'll call them forefathers of American cuisine that have their roots here in the Bay Area. And wine country was just always calling. It was be rare that I didn't get back here at least once a year. And so I built a lot of relationships. Many of those turned into friendships with people in the wine business, people in the restaurant business out here, long before my wife and I ultimately decided to move back here 8 years ago.
Amazing. I think one of the you've described creating Appellation at this kind of like perspective of approachable luxury. Mm-hmm. What were you seeing in luxury hospitality in general that made you say, hey, the traditional approach here maybe doesn't fully express all the opportunity, and we see an opportunity to become more approachable? What was it about approachable luxury that fascinated you?
Yeah, it was looking at the top end of the luxury space, Four Seasons, many other brands in that space today, and saying it's kind of a crowded space, and a lot of them are doing it really well. Throw Four Seasons into that group for sure to this day. And then saying, where's the opportunity for us? We also, Charlie and I selfishly said to ourselves, we want to create a brand that every place that we're going to open up an Appellation hotel, we can get to within a day's time, hopefully by car or by plane, well within a couple hours of our jump-off point, which is Healdsburg, and make sure that we can learn that destination. If it's not a destination we know well before we start working at that destination, it's a place that we really want to ultimately be great regular visitors and eventually be considered part of the fabric of that community too. So I think that's hard to do when you get to scale of, like many of these luxury hotel companies, 100, 150, 200 hotels or more. And our growth trajectory is not to ever get to that point in time, candidly speaking. If we ultimately end up in the next 10 years with 10 hotels, that would be great. If we only end up with 6 or 7 hotels, but we're really proud of every one of those, that's fine with us too.
Why not go for hundreds? Is there something about kind of that smaller scale allows you to put more craft in each one?
I think it does allow us, and Charlie and myself as the co-founders of it, to put more of our time into, to put our fingerprint on it. Not that we don't have really great talented team members that can be a part of that, and we want them to be a part of that, and they are a part of this to this day. But we want to also know that we're regularly visiting those properties, that we can create that level of influence, and that people can join us in this journey that we're on right now to create this beautiful little collection of hotels that truly celebrate sense of place.
Just to bring one element of this to life, you and I actually first met at a garden center here in Healdsburg earlier this year as part of your crafted program. I really enjoyed this. I did the whole episode. I'll link in the show notes where people can hear more about this. But I love the approach because you talk about being embedded in the community or giving a sense of place. For many brands, this is art on the walls, which is a start, but you actually programmatically, even leading up to the opening of your hotels, are building and nurturing relationships in the community. I'd love to get some of your thoughts on Crafted because that's where we first met. I remember seeing you there. You were so engaged in that. There wasn't a lot of people there, but you were there, with other members of your executive team.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us a little bit about the origins of Crafted and how is it compared to your expectations, I guess, now that you've done a number of these?
Yeah, it's been a great experience. And like anything else, it's, we're innovating. It's something kind of new. It's definitely new for us. And so we've had the opportunity now probably for almost a year. We kicked off some of our first Appellation classes almost a year ago. We're now doing 1 or 2 a month. As we get closer to an opening, that pace, that frequency will pick up a bit. But the idea was always, how do we celebrate the makers, the artisans, the people that are truly the fabric of that community? And how do we showcase them in a responsible way, in a meaningful way, so that if you are coming to one of our hotels as a guest coming to stay a night or 2 nights, you have the opportunity to interact with them. You have the opportunity to see them. You might see them actually doing something in regards to their craft. You might enjoy sitting in on one of the classes, as you had a chance to do with our gardening partner here in town. And so we see that as a great way to really get to know what this community is all about. Obviously, here in Healdsburg, this is a very agrarian community. Many people are one way or the other connected to the wine business now, even more different beverages that are being produced here, whether that's spirits or beer or other things like that. But the opportunity to interact with those artisans, the opportunity for us to showcase them, to elevate them. I can tell you, you had a chance to sit in on the session we did at Mixed Garden, which for Charlie and myself, we've known the team there for quite some time. It's where we go at the beginning of the spring to pick up our seedlings and that sort of thing, because we both are avid farmers in our spare time. And that's just one example of where we love to showcase people like that are so committed to their craft. And as you saw firsthand, the people that attended that learned so much. I had a chance to interact with some of those guests, those patrons that came to that crafted class, and they're all super excited about where their garden went to this summer and the bounty that they're now enjoying still up to this point in time in the fall. But just to give you another example, we early on discovered another local roaster, coffee roaster in this particular case, Wolf Coffee, based here, second generation family here, based in the area, and early on, we were introduced to the team at Wolf Coffee, and they've just been another person where we love to have the opportunity to showcase people that are so committed to their craft. They believe in it, they're passionate about it, they're constantly innovating, they're always trying new things. If we think about the team at Wolf Coffee, they first started as a traditional coffee roaster. They had a couple retail shops during the pandemic. They actually closed some of those retail shops down and just focused really on the art of roasting great coffee. Since then, and kind of as an interesting, when you meet the team from Wolf, you see they've gone well beyond, and there's always a tie back to what they're doing, which their primary business is all about roasting coffee. But now they partner up with a chocolate company, and they're actually roasting the cacao beans, have focused a lot on how to roast cacao beans and make the best chocolate that this local chocolatier is doing. They've also partnered up with a local distillery, and they're making a great chocolate liqueur with a local distillery. And so we love it when we find artisans and innovators like that are always trying to reach out also into the community and do new product lines with other innovators. And so those are the types of things we had no idea what that would lead to when we first started working with the team at Wolf Coffee. And it's just so fascinating to see how they're always evolving. And those are the people we think are really interesting. If you happen to be a guest or even a part of the local community here where you don't necessarily have the ability to connect with those people, we're that platform, we're that place. And again, that gets back to sense of place. These are the people that many of you would know, and there's that many others that you don't know, because we're kind of finding them and identifying them, and we're going to showcase those people at our hotels. The other part of the Appellation Crafted classes, which is really exciting for us, is it gives us the opportunity to showcase our team. We have so many great artisans and talent within our team. You might naturally think in the world of hospitality, well, of course, we're a culinary-centric company, so we're going to focus on our culinary team. But it's not always going to be about the executive chef. It might be about the restaurant chef. It might be about the pastry chef. It might be about somebody else in the kitchen that just has a really finely honed skill that people would love to do a session with that person or observe a person doing something like that. Those are the opportunities that we love. But again, considering the offering we have, when you come to our hotels, many of them have culinary gardens. Healdsburg will have a very significant culinary garden here. So we have a chance to go out in the morning and work with the gardener if you wanted to learn about gardening in Healdsburg in the middle of summer. So there's so many of those members of our team. And I think we believe that that's not only great because people love to sort of see how do these things happen behind the scenes, but very importantly, it's part of a development process for those associates of ours that want to be a part of that. And we just recently did this in the hotel in Lodi that we took over, where we took a young sous chef. Our executive chef at the time was supposed to do the class, but he took ill just before the class. And we asked Robert, this aspiring young culinarian in our team, how do you feel about doing the class? I think he was, first of all, surprised and shocked we were asking him. And secondly, probably a bit nervous. But by the time Jennifer, who really leads within our team and works with young associates to kind of help them get comfortable behind the camera or doing a class, it was amazing to see what he was actually able to do with that class. And people were literally eating out of his hand as he did this cooking demo. So that's the other part that's so enriching, is giving us a chance not only to showcase local artisans and makers, but showcase our team. And that's a great part of the business, right? When you can see our associates having a chance to learn something new, a new skill set, but also having a chance to demonstrate that to others beyond our team and be appreciated for all that they're doing.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think it really speaks to what you're building, and it's why I find it so compelling, because it is, you talked earlier about celebrating your people, and it's not just a slogan on a wall somewhere. It's into the programming. We talked about crafted, where it's a lot of external collaborations, but then you got into kind of how this is actually about showcasing your internal teams. And this permeates every aspect of your brand and how you operate, into the architecture and the design. Even my understanding is the kitchens are more open, or some of these things where, in some brands or hotels, the heart of the house, or whatever you want to call it, is that. It is kind of behind the scenes. And you're bringing people out, which is, some people talk about valuing their teams. You're actually even getting into design and architecture in a way that does this.
Yeah. And We've had the good fortune on all of our projects to date right now. We have a very talented interior design team that has been a part of the fabric of everything we're building, and that's EDG Design down in Nevada, Jennifer Johansson and her team. They understand hotels, they understand us as a brand and what we're trying to create. They too do a lot of what we call soul searching early on as we start out a new project to figure out what is it that we're going to incorporate from a design perspective that's really going to go beyond putting pictures up on the wall, from a local artist, or saying that this wood happens to be on this table happens to come from a local forest. We go well beyond that, and they push the boundaries in that regard. And so the design, the physicality of what we're doing, we really try to, with everything we're designing, try to use as much local materials as possible. Very importantly, though, we think about the place and what's the style of architecture. And again, we work with some really fantastic architectural firms who partner with an interior design firm. So we really start with that. What's the look, the feel, and we want it to feel like it belongs there. We don't want you to look at that building and say, I think I've seen that building, in another destination that's very different than this destination. Beyond that, it's, what's going to make this hotel unique in that destination? How do we differentiate it from, in many cases, many good competitors that are in those markets? But again, bringing back some of those core design values of thinking about, we want to be very culinary forward, very culinary centric. So if you looked at the Healdsburg design, when you arrive into the hotel at Healdsburg, you're arriving into a very robust food and beverage offering. You see to your left as you come in, you see an amazing wine display and amazing wine contributions from all sorts of local winemakers. You see right away a very big open kitchen where our team is focused. They're on the spotlight, and where we have a chance not only for you from almost any vantage point in the restaurant to see what's going on, but if you wanted to and you want to have a more curated experience, a slightly more elevated experience, you could sit around the front part of that kitchen and have a more elevated experience within that restaurant. If you walk to the right as you come in, you'd think, is that reception? And it's not maybe as obvious as the sign that says reception and the traditional big block front desk. It actually looks like you're arriving into someone's kitchen. It's done with a big butcher block table, and that's where you arrive into the hotel. And when you arrive there, you'd say, okay, feels like I might be arriving to someone's, like Charlie's kitchen at his house. There's always going to be something there for you to enjoy, to imbibe, or to nibble on as you arrive and as we get you settled in to the hotel before we escort you to your room and send you on your journey. And so that's just one of these nuances where we wanted to very intentionally create a different experience. And we just feel that there's so many great conversations, there's so many great initial experiences people have when they're in this warm environment of a kitchen. And again, being a culinary-centric company, why not? So we've done that in Healdsburg and a couple of our other properties. But design is something we spend a lot of time on. Our design partners at times scratch their heads and say, aren't we done here? Can't we move on? But we love to look for inspiration all the time at new places we've seen, new things we've seen. We're always thinking about what's going to make this hotel different than the next hotel. It's great that we have such a collaborative group of partners, not only within our organization, but other people we tap, and very importantly, EDG is our interior design company and some of the great architectural firms we're working with.
What are you doing to make sure the culture remains as strong and as empowering as it could be?
I think we do it in a lot of ways. It's really all about the team. So I'd love to say, it's Charlie and myself. I think we set the tone, we set the expectation, but it is really about making sure that we're all, carrying that on and setting that tone and creating the culture that many of us had the good fortune to be a part of some really strong people-focused cultures in the past. And then how do we nuance that, right? The part we shared earlier about, crafted, I think is just a great way for us to profile a lot more of our team. And I didn't have that in our past to the same extent that we have right now. Although not that visible yet, but in the months ahead, you'll see we're launching a new website very shortly. And again, a lot of that website is about those destinations, but about the people also in those destinations. And then very importantly, it's how do we leverage social media in today's world, right? And a lot of our social media presence will be very much about our team and about our people and about celebrating the culture within Appellation.
You have created an extraordinary technology platform that underpins all of this. That's very different. And we could go into the details of that if you want, but I'm especially interested on what you find most compelling, what you're personally most interested in. You know, it could be specifically around AI or just technology in general. What gets you excited in that area these days?
You know, I think it's a couple foundations or a couple sort of guiding lights that were a part of when we set out to create our technology stack. We said we need to keep these in the forefront. One was we've got to make sure we have amazing CRM, right? Knowing your customer, using that information in a responsible way is really, really important. And we think, like many other organizations out there, we've chose the best in class, which is Salesforce. And so we're really leveraging that. And that's kind of at the epicenter of everything we're doing. Everything we're doing, especially where the guest says, yes, we're sharing this information with you, we're capturing that. So we understand the customers in a deeper and a richer and a more robust way that we wouldn't be able to do if we didn't have such a great CRM and Salesforce. The other thing we said is there are so many systems to bring a hotel to life. You know, the average traveler probably doesn't realize that, but so many hotel companies today have a lot of legacy systems, which are really hard to change away from because you choose that, and all of a sudden, if you've got 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 hotels or more, the decision to move away from a legacy system is an expensive decision. But the problem is with a lot of those legacy systems that still many of the brands out there today use, they haven't really evolved. We had a chance to select, I'll call it best-in-class technology, to make sure that we're choosing providers, software providers, technology providers that can grow with us and that are always thinking about, what's the next iteration of this. The other thing is we said, let's figure out a way to do more with less. So in my former life, we might have anywhere from 80 to 100 different technology platforms that you're constantly trying to bring together. We've chosen providers that quite often bundle a lot of things together under their umbrella. And so today, our complete technology stack has really no more than 40 different software providers, technology providers in the hospitality space that we're partnering with. That makes it a lot easier from a learning perspective for staff because they don't have to learn. If you're someone who's doing a lot of different roles or have a lot of different responsibilities, you're not having to learn 70 or 80 different software platforms. It also allows people to move around a lot faster within that platform and make better, smarter, more expeditious decisions. So it's allowed us to do those things. We're still finalizing some of the parts of that as we bring Healdsburg to life in another 8 months from now. But really excited about that. And we had a chance to roll some of that out in the hotel in Lodi that we're now managing. And it's amazing to see how transformational that's been to the team there. And we're just at the infancy of rolling that out in an existing hotel right now. So it's been really great for us.
So what's coming down the road? We've talked about so many exciting things. What's coming down?
As you know, because we shared this with you before, we have the hotel in Healdsburg opening up near our one of our newer projects down in Morgan Hill, which will also open up at the end of 2025. We're super excited about those because that's where we have a chance to really bring visitors in the community into those hotels and showcase everything that they're all about. There's our project in Sun Valley that should happen in 2026, our project down in Pacific Grove. There's a handful of other projects that are coming. Petaluma, also another I think foundational part of how we build sort of an offering of hotels here in Sonoma County. But soon to come, and you'll be one of the first to know more specifically about those. We've got 2 projects right now that we're working on that I think we'll be able to talk about before the end of the year. One is a mountain destination resort. It'll be a very nice complement to our project underway in Sun Valley, and it has a whole element to it of wellness. We'll sort of take our commitment to wellness well beyond what we're doing in some of our other spas. So we're really, really excited about that, to showcase that. And it'll be, I think, another hotel that people will be very excited to learn about when we can talk about it more publicly.